howdy, it's good to be back and getting a chance to speak to you all a little bit about the Department of Animal Science here at Texas A&M. We've had to go through a lot of things over the last 6 or 7 months associated with COVID, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do and accomplish as a department in terms of remaining positive and remaining committed to the impacts of our students. This fall, we're almost at the midpoint of the fall semester where we've had to teach half of our classes face-to-face, while at the same time those classes are being delivered remotely. And I know that that's been a challenge for many of our faculty, especially when it comes to our labs, which are very hands-on, but they've handled it extremely well. And then the other 50% of our classes are either delivered entirely remotely, either synchronously at a specific time of day, or asynchronously when students have the time to take those classes. And so we should be hearing fairly quickly after the midterm results come in what the impact of going to online is, and if there are differences in how students have responded to taking classes in face-to-face versus remotely. We will certainly adapt and make some changes to ensure that our students are successful. We've also been very, very fortunate. It's been our most productive year ever in terms of receiving federal funding. Within the last 2 months, we've had notice that we've received over $5 million in competitive grants from the USDA. And so that's extremely exciting for our department. It's the highest that we've ever been. And so we're awfully excited about that. But today, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Sapna Dass. And Dr. Dass is a bacterial genomics expert, and she's a research assistant professor in the department. And she was fortunate enough to take action when there was an opportunity from the USDA to submit a research proposal to have a look at the opportunities to address issues associated with COVID on the beef supply chain, all the way from the live animal all the way to the retail store. And then one of the goals of her research project is to ultimately provide information and educate producers, members of the supply chain who handle the animals and the meat products, and then ultimately the consumers. And so I have Dr. Dass with me today, and I have a few questions that I want to ask her so that she can respond and give you a little bit of insight into the type of work she's doing. So Sapna, it's good to have you. Can you tell me what you hope to be the ultimate impact of your project is? And it's $1 million grant over 2 years.
Yes.
So at the end of 2 years, what do you hope to have accomplished?
Thank you for the introduction. So the project started because National Cattlemen's Beef Academy estimated about 13 million lost to the beef industry, and it cascades from the meat processing workers having a rapid increase in COVID-19 and resulting in shutting down of the facilities. So this created a bottleneck between the livestock producers and the beef processors, resulting in a shortage in beef supply. So the impact of our research would be to look at the farm-to-plate systematic approach to negate the bottlenecks.
So trying to figure out where the bottlenecks
Absolutely.
are and where
Yes.
where potential workers might be at risk of receiving or contracting COVID.
Contracting the COVID. So the first aim for the proposal is to look at the susceptibility and transmission between the beef cattle itself. Our hypothesis is probably they are not being susceptible, but they are merely just carrying the virus on the hide and then spreading it amongst themselves, and the virus being airborne, probably just staying for a very long time, and entering into the meat processing facility, again with the workers working very closely and the processing not being completely automated, so there's a lot of contact with the animal, and that would be a possible route of the SARS-CoV-2. and the rapid increase as well within the processing facility and the packaging facility. And so from there, we would like to see whether how the SARS-CoV-2 survives within the meat packaging and processing facility, and how they survive and transmit as well. And then moving on to whether they survive during transportation and the survivability during the retail display. And finally, we'll consolidate all the experimental output to a mathematical model to predict the transmission of SARS-CoV-2 to the consumers ultimately.
And so ultimately, you should be able to communicate this either in some form, whether it be video or popular, various educational opportunities to both the consumer and members of the meat supply chain, right?
So we have Jason Smith, Dr. Jason Smith at Amarillo, who will be helping us with developing the educational videos and distributing it to our stakeholders as well, who are definitely wanting some answers with the current pandemic.
And then you work with, I believe it's Amanda Brown,
yes.
who's at TVMDL,
absolutely,
right?
Yes.
And
so this is a collaborative project between TVMDL, Dr. Amanda Brown, and with the University of Pennsylvania, where they'll be working on the transmission and mathematical modeling. And with USDA, US Meat Animal Research Center, which is US MARC, and they'll be helping us with the baseline, getting us samples from the processing facility itself. So it will be a real life scenarios where we get in samples from the processing facility to test for the survivability of the virus.
very good. So one of the questions that we often get is associated with animals. I mean, is there any evidence that cattle might contract COVID and actually show symptoms?
So out of the literature, or if I can say bioarchives, there are contradicting literatures where they say that they contract the disease and do exhibit signs of COVID-19, but some say they're not affected, they're not susceptible, but they're just carrying it on the hide. So I think probably through our research we can confirm whether they're being susceptible or they're just being formite carriers.
So, yeah, so I mean, and that's the great thing about your research is we're going to be able to answer that question.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And we have a fantastic facility over here, which is the Global Health Research Complex, where we can work with live virus and in animals in secured locations. So
yes.
we're not spreading the virus around.
That's great, yes. So when you look at the packing plants then, you're going to be looking at the opportunity for the virus to be either on the meat product or in the facilities itself, the ventilation systems, etc. Is that correct? Is that the way?
It's both.
Yeah.
Because it's airborne and the meat processing facility is cold, and the virus can survive during the cold temperatures. And with the HVAC system, it's going to be suspended in circulation. So one of our hypotheses is that it is finding in some hot spot to stay stable and spread among the workers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe on meat itself or on the places where they touch very commonly. So
sure. And then the last part is the transport of the meat to the retail store, right?
Yes.
And then the various packaging there. So you're going to be measuring whether there is an opportunity for it to be transported
yes.
to the retail locations,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah. So whether they can survive on packaging material, whether they're not infectious, but if they've been stable, then if a worker or a consumer touches the package, it's going to get transported onto the personal. So we'll be looking at the survivability of the virus on packaging material and whether they can survive on meat products as well. Again, there are literatures out there which gives us contradicting answers, so hopefully our research will try and answer those questions.
Very good. So last question is, to receive these funds, you had a lot of support from a lot of industry partners. Can you give some names of some of the partners that we actually asked to provide support for this?
Absolutely. So we had immense help through you and through Dr. Rhonda Miller reaching out to many of the stakeholders, and some of them are JBS, and we had Cargill, and I think it is
Was it
cattle feeders,
Texas cattle
cactus, Yes,
Yes.
yeah, Cactus Fields
Cactus.
Association.
Mhm. And then I think the Texas Beef Council
Yes,
was
yeah.
also
Absolutely,
supportive,
yes.
and the Texas Southwest Cattle Races,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
So, yeah, very good. So I think that this is a fantastic opportunity. As many of you know, our department is highly productive. It's sort of the leading beef cattle research department in the country. And this is one project that is, continues to set us apart, giving us the opportunities to do this kind of research, cutting edge research to help the livestock industry. And so I want to thank Sapna again for joining us and sharing a little bit of the work that she's doing. And as always, if you ever have any questions about anything that we're doing at Texas A&M, we welcome you to get in touch with us. Thank you and take care.
Thank you.